I thought sugar grew in sugar caves, similar to salt caves. I believed that sugar crystals, like rock candy, just grew in caves and there were parts of the world with beautiful crystallized sugar caves. I was 25 years old when I brought it up in conversation with my fiancé. I tried to prove to him they were real, and it was when I reached my 4th page on Google, I realized my whole world was a lie. I thought that teachers lived at school. I had a teacher that had a blanket in the back of her classroom, and a mini fridge, and this only further elucidated my hypothesis. I used to think that people exclusively wore hats if they were bald, because that's why my dad wore a hat. My dad is bald but has always had a beard, since I've known him, anyway. He was also a serviceman. He used to tell me that the reason he was bald was that he stood on a landmine which blew the hair off the top of his head and it slipped round to give him the beard instead. As a child I was just like, yep, makes sense. Hair not on head, hair in chin. That's gravity for ya. He also told me that a scar on his leg was from a gunshot wound. 20 years later I got a bug bite on my leg, that got infected, sorry, hope you're not eating, and left a perfectly round scar in the same place as his. I commented on how much my bug bite scar looked like his gunshot wound scar and he said, "What? Is that what I told you?" No, this was a bug bite that got infected. Ah, dads. Ha ha ha, that reminds me of my dad, Navy, telling me a scar on his arm was from a sword fight with pirates. Totally fell for it. Edit, just also remembered it backfired on him. Of course I told all the neighborhood kids with great pride and excitement. He totally had the piss taken out of him by the neighborhood dads down the local pub when the kids all went home asking their dads if they'd fought pirates too. That I could smell something while underwater. When I was around 10-12 years old I was in a tropical themed water park where also happened to be a herbal bath. It smelled very nice, which I had not expected. Most of the tropical plants were fake plastic plants, so I figured the water in the bath was normal swimming pool water and the smell was coming from something else. The bath was surrounded with a small aromatic herb garden which didn't look fake. I sneakily took a sample from a thyme plant that felt surprisingly real. But because the air was filled with all the different aromas and a hint of chlorine I couldn't smell anything different when I tried to smell the thyme. I figured the only place where my sense of smell couldn't be fooled by any fakery was underwater. For 5 seconds I actually felt pretty smart. Until I tried. I thought guys got periods too, but only once, and you bled and then you were able to impregnate someone. I cut my upper leg during a rugby match and was bleeding near my groin and was devastated because I thought everyone would presume I had my period mid-match and also subsequently would be walking around able to impregnate people. Worst thing is, I wasn't even a stupid kid, we literally just lived in a reserved country and I was a full-time boarder at my school, so never got the talk. Anyway, thanks for attending my bled talk. I was convinced that Greeks still worship Zeus and other gods for a while after I heard the word Greek Orthodox Church as a kid. This reminds me of another stupid thing I believed. When I was in middle school I watched a documentary about Gothic churches. I believed that Goth was a religion. I asked a couple Goth friends at the time about their religion. They played along for a while that day, until finally I realized they were laughing at me. I later realized Gothic is describing the architecture of the church. My friends never let me live that one down. As a kid, I thought that the world wars were like battle royales where there were no alliances, no surrenders, and just pure bloody violence between every country on Earth. For example, I thought every country fought all of its neighbors simultaneously. Agreed. I also thought there was a World War III and always wondered why my mom didn't buy the box set of documentaries for it like she did for the first two. There was an ad for it on the TV, probably World War II thinking back. My 5th grade teacher told us blood was blue until exposed to oxygen. I know this is common lie, but what stuck to me was how committed she was to that lie. The next day, a kid came and said her dad told her that wasn't true. And the teacher did the typical, well, how would you know? If the moment you see blood, it's exposed to oxygen. The next day the kid came saying, how come if I flash a light on thin skin, she used her cheek, it looks red? Teacher said it was because the light was yellow and it made the blue light look red. The next day the kid came with a blue flashlight. Same thing. The teacher said the blood was already exposed to oxygen since her cheek was so close to her mouth, where oxygen goes in. The next day the girl tested it on her pinky. And I don't remember what happened next, it always stuck to me as odd. Because she was an otherwise great teacher. That's an odd fixation to have, and I would be pissed if my daughter came home every day with a new lie. I wouldn't necessarily call it a lie. It's a common misconception, seeing as a lot of veins appear blue under the skin. Next time you see someone who believes this though, ask them if they've ever donated blood, or had blood taken for blood work. No exposure to oxygen there, and it's still red. When we played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, my little sister used to accept the lamest missions and not get good rewards. I told her about it and she responded with, "How would you like it if you were a poor Pokemon that lost its mom and was stuck all alone and had nothing to give someone to save you?" I laughed my head off at her because it's not real, but secretly, I feel that in my soul sometimes. I read something that there was a Pokemon in an older game that was endangered according to the lore. On one of these Ask Reddit threads, some guy said he spent hours breeding and releasing them. The new lore now says they have bounced back from endangerment. That the Great Wall of China had a cat adoption program. I was meeting my friend's boyfriend for the first time, and he mentioned that he had just adopted one of the retired Great Wall of China cats. China trains these cats to patrol the wall and kill vermin, and at the end of their 7-year stint they are retired and adopted out to a forever home. I kept asking questions about it. How do you apply? Are they a specific breed? How do they get transported worldwide? In the end, he told me that he made the whole thing up because my friend had told him I was really gullible and wanted to see how far he could push it, but he didn't think I'd get so enthused. The worst part? I was in my mid-20s at the time. When I was a little kid, I believed that when people got divorced, they had a divorce ceremony, like where they had to go to church and say, "I don't," and I imagined the woman wore a black divorce dress, like her wedding dress had been dyed black, and that everybody went to the reception where the ex-bride and ex-groom sat on opposite sides of the hall, and there was a divorce cake where the little bride and groom on top had their backs to each other with their arms angrily crossed. I eventually learned, from watching my mom's soap operas, that this was not the case, and was kind of disappointed cause I'd been to a few weddings by then, and was interested in what a divorce ceremony was like. I grew up in a Jewish household but was aware of the whole Christmas thing. It was my understanding that Santa would go around bringing gifts to kids if they left out a plate of cookies and some milk for him. Seemed easy enough. 'Twas the night before Christmas and I left the perfect food arrangement out for Santa, thinking in spite of my religious beliefs, he might leave me a gift in exchange for the snacks. When I awoke the next morning, the cookies and milk were gone but no present was left. I was furious. How dare this jolly fat man come into my hole, steal my food and not leave anything in return? I spent years complaining about it and would curse the man's name if I saw him. Of course, years later my dad admitted that he had eaten everything. Thanks, Dad.